Hello, this is the Mushroom Wizard, and I've brought to you guys once again a presentation regarding the mushrooms found in Saskatchewan and the ways in which we go about identifying and picking those mushrooms. So we're going to be tackling one of the largest groups of edible mushrooms found in Saskatchewan, and that is the Brittlegills, or the Russellas, or the Rosulas. I'm not sure how to say that properly. So I'll refer to them as either Brittlegills or Rosellas. So I've had to split this presentation into two. Today we're going to be looking at the Brittlegills that have a mild taste, so the mild Brittlegills of Saskatchewan. The one genus that we'll be focusing in on is, of course, Rosala. So let's start by talking about what a Brittlegill is. Brittlegills, like I've said, belong to the Rosella genus, and they come in many different colors. You see a yellow one there on the right. We'll be looking at green Rosellas. We'll be looking at orange Rosellas, red Rosellas, pink Rosellas. Pretty much the whole rainbow as these next two presentations continue. So they have gills, as the name would suggest, that break apart when agitated. So if you were to run your finger around the circumference underneath the cap there, all those gills would just break apart. They have a stipe that is filled with pith and that hollows out by maturity. So when I say pith, it's a stipe that when you pick it when it's young, it feels very solid. But what's inside is this sort of chalky substance that becomes very powdery as it approaches maturity, and then at maturity basically it just disappears and the stipe is left hollow, at which point it kind of looks a little bit more lumpy and almost like it's filled up, almost like a balloon with air, which it has. They have a cuticle that peels away from the cap. So cuticle is basically the skin or the layer on top of the cap's flesh. And it's almost like tissue paper with most Rosella species, so you can just grab the edge and strip it away, usually almost to the middle of the cap, and underneath you'll see the flesh, which will be a much paler color of what the cuticle was, or it'll be white, usually, with a few exceptions. The caps themselves, as well as the stipe, they break apart very easily. So if you pick one and you drop it, it'll usually almost shatter. And the best part of all, the Rosella genus contains no dangerously toxic species in Saskatchewan. That is not to say that there are no dangerously toxic species. There is at least one species that can cause fatalities found in Asia and perhaps in parts of the southeastern United States. As well, there are some mildly toxic species in Saskatchewan, but we'll address those at a later date. So the first mushroom we're going to be looking at is very common here. That is the green Brittlegill, Rosella aeruginosa. Not sure if I said that right, but is what it is. So the cap is light to dark green, or kind of a greenish yellow, sometimes sort of a mottled coloration between the two. It is initially spherical. So when I say spherical, what I mean is that it almost looks like a globe on a stipe, and the margin curls down and actually touches the stipe, and it basically keeps the gills completely concealed in that way. So it is initially spherical, becoming convex relatively quickly, and that's the basic agaric shape. And then it flattens out, and then it finally develops a shallow depression as it becomes mature. You can see that happening on the right-hand side where it has been flattened, and now it's developing that central depression, and then it will begin to decay. It has, again, that paper-thin cuticle, and that cuticle will peel halfway to the center. The margin is smooth, becoming striate. So that margin, once it begins to mature, it's almost like you're looking at the gills themselves through tissue paper. right around the edge, the circumference of the edge there. Again, these are damaged very easily, and they grow up to about 4 inches in diameter, the caps of these mushrooms. Here is a size reference for you. In the middle there, you can see that something else that is common with these mushrooms is the colors often get washed out if they're exposed to a lot of water or rain. And you can see that's happened on the right in that photo there, and then on the left around the margins. So the gills are cream, becoming yellowish with age. They are adnate to slightly decurrent. The gills are close together, and there are no short gills. So we're going to see two groups of Rosellas in that, in terms of the short gills. We're going to see ones with short gills, ones without. This one has no short gills. Those gills, once again, are very brittle, and this mushroom produces a creamy yellow spore print. The stipe is white to off-white, bruising brown near the base. So if you were to damage that base, it would turn brown. It is cylindrical in shape, so basically the same width throughout. And in terms of the shape here, remember I mentioned that these are filled with a pith that disappears. You can tell that that's happened in this mushroom because it's got this sort of almost bloated look to it because it's filled with air. There's a central attachment to the cap, and these grow up to about 3 inches high and a ½ inch thick, or so, roughly speaking. These are mycorrhizal with both hardwoods and conifers. They are terrestrial. They are scattered to gregarious. They are found summer through fall, and they are often concealed beneath leaf litter. So when I find one of these, a good habit is to just stop and look around, because often you'll see others peeking out, just like edges of them peeking out beneath the leaf litter where they've been concealed. And they are very common in Saskatoon. People just walk right past them. So you got to really take a look if you find one for the others, because there will be others. I consider these to be choice. They're good tasting. They have a mild taste. They are good fried, but especially stewed. They are very good pickled. That's what I do with them. One thing to note is that when you boil them in the brine for pickling, they will turn pink. That's something that happens when this mushroom is exposed to salt. These are good for intermediate mushroom pickers. Now, the reason these are good stewed or pickled, and I'm just going to address this because this is the case for many of these mushrooms, many of the Brittlegills, is because they're kind of horrible to eat otherwise. They break apart easily. They're almost chalky as a result. The textural feel of them is just not pleasant. But when you boil them, they actually become more firm, and they become more almost like meaty. So you can get a lot more out of them in that way. So stewing them is a good idea, or pickling, or anything that involves them being boiled first. Or if you want to put them in a sauce, make sure they're just boiling for a time in the sauce so that they firm up. Next mushroom. This is the olive brittlegill, Rosala olavercia. So the cap of this mushroom is olive to yellowish green, turning rusty red or brown with age. So it goes through a fairly dramatic color change. It is initially spherical, becoming convex. So basically, that's going to be happening over and over with these mushrooms, going from that spherical shape all the way to a depressed flattening. Has again paper-thin cuticle that peels halfway. The margin becomes striate, damaged easily. We're going to start to skip these features because it's just going to get repetitive otherwise. But this is a much larger cap. It grows up to about 6 inches in diameter. Here is some size references for you, and you can see the difference in color there between that one and the bottom. I'm looking at the left-hand photo, and then the mushrooms on the left there, how dramatically they've changed. The gills are cream, turning tan with age, and staining pink. And you can see that there, just how complex the color is. And you can also see the brittle quality of those gills right in that cap. It looks like something might have bumped into it. Again, adnate, slightly decurrent. Mostly what you see is adnate. What we're looking at there is adnate. The gills are close together. Once again, no short gills, very brittle, producing an orange-yellow spore print. That stipe is cream, turning pink with age, cylindrical, central attachment, everything the same. It's up to about 4 inches high and 1 inch thick, so a bigger mushroom. These are mycorrhizal with spruce, so they will be very common in the province. They are terrestrial, scattered to gregarious, found from spring all the way through to fall. They are a choice edible. They have a nutty taste. Again, you should stew this. You do have to cook this for quite a while because it is mildly toxic until cooked. And it does have a high allergen potential. So that mild toxicity would be gastrointestinal in nature. A very beautiful mushroom, though, I should note. That green-pink dichotomy there. So here we have the Yellow-Gilled Brittlegill, Rossella Lulia. So the cap is yellow, sometimes with orange and darkening with age. It is initially spherical. That is all the same that you can expect from a Brittlegill. Paper thin cuticle. You can see that cuticle has been kind of torn away in some places there. There's white spots. That's the flesh underneath. The margin is smooth, becoming striate. You can see that starting to happen there. These are only up to about 3 inches in diameter, so a smaller mushroom. Cute little mushroom. Here's a size reference. So the gills are yellow, darkening with age. Very pale yellow to begin with. They are adnate, adnext. So when I say adnext, as opposed to decurrent, they actually do at times dip inwards, as you can see is happening with this mushroom. They're close together. Short gills are absent once again, and this has got an ochre spore print. The stipe is white in color. It is cylindrical, as you can expect, attaches centrally to the cap, and it's only up to about 3 inches high and a ½ inch thick. These are mycorrhizal with hardwoods with a preference for birch. They are very common in Saskatchewan. These are terrestrial. They are found scattered to gregarious. They occur summer through fall. Once again, I find these in Saskatoon, but they will definitely be found throughout the province, anywhere there's a birch tree. These are choice. They are mild. They smell like apricots, kind of faintly like apricots. Good in any dish. These ones are a bit more firm, I find, but you should still give it a bit of a boil in terms of how you're cooking it, so that it doesn't crumble away. Next mushroom. This is the yellow swamp brittlegill, Rosala clariflava. Guess where you find these ones. So, yellow, brilliantly yellow, darkening with age. Looks very similar to the last mushroom we looked at, but it's a lot larger. It's up to 5 inches in diameter. Once again, you have that striate margin. You can see how brittle it is. Here's a size reference for you. That mushroom's seen better days, that's for sure. The gills are white, and then they yellow with age. Adnate to adnext. They are brittle, no short gills. They have an orangish yellow spore print. The stipe is white in color. They bruise gray when you handle them or if they're damaged. So when I say handling, I mean just picking. Certain mushrooms will often cause them to start bruising, and that would happen with this one. The stipe would start to become bright gray. Cylindrical. Everything the same. It's up to 4 inches high, 1 inch thick. So this is a European species. It's used to describe very similar species here that just don't have names of their own, or else we just haven't adopted those names on a wide scale basis. Mycorrhizal with hardwoods and conifers, preferential to birch, preferential to damp or boggy areas. They're found summer through fall, scattered to gregarious once again. Same thing as the last mushroom. They're your choice edibles. Mild taste. They don't have that apricot smell, but again, give them a boil if you can. Or pickle them. Here is one that is much sought after. I've never seen this one here, but based upon its ecology, there's no reason why it wouldn't occur here. This is a green quilted Brittlegill, Rosala CF frescens. CF in that likely there are several species that look the same and have the same characteristics. So this is olive green to green. Everything is pretty much the same there. Margin is smooth, becoming striate. The main difference is how the mushroom looks. So this one forms kind of a quilted pattern, and it has this sort of green almost spotting to it, and then it dries and cracks. It becomes areolate. And these grow up to about 6 inches in diameter. Here's a size reference for you. These are white, becoming cream with age. They're adnate to adnext, crowded. The short gills are absent, once again. Though, yeah, this one has a white spore print. Lost my train of thought there for a second. This photo actually shows you that spherical nature of the young caps very well. How they're kind of tucked inwards there. The stipe is white to off-white, bruising brown, cylindrical. They are filled again with a powdery pith. They grow up to about 4 inches high, 1 inch thick. These are mycorrhizal with hardwoods. They are terrestrial, solitary to gregarious, and found summer through fall. They are well known for having a nutty, mild flavor and being one of the best of the Brittlegills to eat. Good for pickling, stews, sauces, etc. Next mushroom. This is the crab Brittlegill, Rasala zarempolina, which is actually, again, a group of Brittlegills that all look the same and taste the same. I have found these ones. This is considered to be the best of the Brittlegills to eat. These ones are very common up in the mixed forests around just north of PA. So these are purple to red to brown, and any combination therein. Initially spherical, again becoming convex. They develop a central depression. Usually they're darker in the central depression there, as you can see demonstrated here. That paper-thin cuticle peels halfway to the center. The margin is smooth, once again becoming striates, but with this one, you'll often see that margin also becoming wavy. And it is a thicker, meatier cap as well. And they get quite big. These grow up to 13 inches in diameter. That would be a huge mushroom. Generally speaking, you can expect them to be up to about 8 or 9. There's a size reference for you. So a very big Brittlegill. The gills are white, becoming cream with age. They are adnate to adnext. You can see an adnext example there. As the gills dip in downwards towards the stipe. They are close together. No short gills. They bruise a yellowish brown. And they have a cream to orange spore print. Because again, we're likely talking about several macroscopically identical species. So the stipe is cream, turning red or pink with age. cylindrical. It has a central attachment to the cap, bruises yellow-brown, and then it's up to about 5 inches high, 2 inches thick, so it can be a very big stipe. So here we have examples in that photo of the wavy margin that is kind of unique to this specific type of Brittlegill. And there, as in that first little passage there, this is a European species, Rosala zarempolina. But the crab Brittlegill is a group of mushrooms that look just like Rosala zarempolina. These are mycorrhizal with both hardwoods and conifers. They are terrestrial. They're scattered to gregarious, found summer through fall. And these are choice. They have a mild taste and they smell strongly of cooked shellfish. So be that crab or shrimp or just shellfish in general, you smell it and you're like, huh, I don't know if that smells good or really bad, but they are good in pretty much any dish. They are not as brittle as the other Brittlegills, and that's a really nice thing about them. These are for intermediate mushroom pickers. Here's a lookalike alert. The first. So Rosala zarempolina is on the left, and on the right we have a group of mushrooms. Just generally I'm going to refer to as the sickeners. That is Rosala emetica, cremoricolor, silvicola. They all look pretty much the same. They can all make you somewhat sick. They're mildly toxic. The worst thing about them is that they're extremely spicy, so much so that most people with a Western palate cannot tolerate these. They are eaten in places like Turkey, but we're not in Turkey, so we'll just leave them alone because they do require special preparation to eat, and it will ruin your meal if you think what you're getting is a mild tasting mushroom that smells like shellfish. So this is going to be a little bit strange to say, but the best way to determine that you have the right mushroom is to taste it. If it is like eating peppery fire or tasting peppery fire, then you've got the wrong mushroom. So when I say taste, you do a taste test. You take a piece of it, you put it on your tongue, leave it there for about 30 seconds in your mouth, swish it around a bit, then spit it out. You're not going to get sick because, as I've mentioned a couple times, you have to ingest it for it to make you sick. What's going to happen is you're going to have a burning sensation if you have the wrong mushroom. If you have the right mushroom, you won't have that. It'll just taste like mushroom. Moving on. The Flirt, Rosala vesca, or something similar to Rosala vesca, because that is a European species once again. But we do have similar here. I've never found this one, to be honest, or if I have, I've just left it alone because I generally leave alone the red ones. But once again, there's no reason why this wouldn't be occurring here, as it does have pretty much a range that is supposed to extend across the country. So this is pink to red to reddish brown. They are, once again, initially spherical, becoming convex. That whole thing is the same. Paper-thin cuticle, peels halfway to center. Now, the cuticle in this group of mushrooms pulls away from the margin just a little bit, and it leaves the gills exposed if you look at it from the side, as you can see in this photo here. And that's why it's called the Flirt. It's like it's lifting up the skirt a little bit. And this, you'll see a visible white line along the margin. And that is a great way to tell if you have the right mushroom. Up to 4 inches in diameter. So good size. Here's a size reference for you. Once again, I believe that size reference on the right is coming from Quebec, if I'm not mistaken. And then the gills are white, adnate to adnext. Short gills absent once again. The gills on this one are forked at the base. You can't see it very well there, maybe a little bit. But it's hard to tell with this photo. And they're brittle and they produce a white spore print. The stipe is white to off-white, bruising brown. especially down near the base there. Cylindrical, has a central attachment to the cap. Again, we've seen all of these qualities. They are up to 3 inches high, 1/2 inch thick. They are mycorrhizal with hardwoods. They are terrestrial. They are solitary, so they don't really occur in the quantities that we see other Rosellas occurring. They're found summer through fall. They're a choice edible. They have a nutty flavor, good in any dish. One thing I think that it's important to mention about this mushroom is that from what I've read, because once again, like I've said, I've never confirmed that I've actually found this one, but from what I've read, the gills are not as brittle as they are in some of the other Brittlegills, which could be one of the reasons why it is considered a choice edible among the many other Brittlegills that are not. I also am of the belief that when people say they have found Rasala rosea, which is another mushroom that people look for that I do not believe occurs here, they've probably found this one. Here is a look-alike alert once again for Rosala emetica, cremore color, or silvicola. And as you probably noticed, I didn't have any spore prints because people, for whatever reason, don't take much spore prints of Rosellas and post them online for me to nab and put in here. But what I have found is basically a chart for you to reference when I'm talking about the spore colors. And that's it for the mild Brittlegills of Saskatchewan. There are many, many other Brittlegills. Some of them are probably edible, but the ones that I come across the most often are included here, as well as two, like I said, that I have not found on my own yet, but hope to someday, and are considered choice. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. This is the Mushroom Wizard. I will see you next time with another Brittlegill presentation.